to Erasmus, so free drinks for everyone again. Not true. Not true. It would be nice, Francesco, next time. We will be focused on these proposals coming from Vision in order to make Erasmus free for everyone, or economically sustainable for everyone, or even compulsory. Because as we know, yes, with the last multi-annual financial framework, I think the European Union doubled more or less the funds for Erasmus. And it was certainly a good idea, but it's not enough. It's considered maybe a privilege for someone, and those who could benefit the most from this experience are still today cut off. I'm part of this generation of Erasmus students, so I'm really grateful to that experience that allowed me to discover when I was really younger that I'm part of a bigger world. So I think it's quite important to allow the greatest number of students to enjoy this opportunity, which is maybe today one of the greatest success of the European Union. Let's start with these proposals in details. The floor is yours, Azzurra Rinaldi, head of the School of Gender Economics at La Sapienza, Roma. Thanks.
Thank you. I would like first of all to thank the University of Siena, the Vision think tank, and of course, Francesco Grillo for wanting me here. And we are talking about Erasmus Plus mobility program. We are talking about young people, and they called me for introducing the topic, which is quite funny, right? But I'm an economist, actually. So first thing I searched for was numbers, okay, which are the data on this program. And we have the 2020 data, which are huge because we have the 604,000 people who studied, trained, or volunteered abroad for about 20,400 projects, and an amount of almost 4 billion euros, with also an increase of 15% over the previous year. Why are we talking about the Erasmus Plus program? Because in the intentions, this should be a tool for inclusion, right? So I'm a gender economist. The first thing I searched for was for potential gender imbalances, which is, you know, what most of my days are made of, looking for gender imbalances, which is, you know, here in Italy, it's quite an easy task because you look everywhere and you do find something, right? So yeah, quite an easy task. But here, what I found was actually a gender imbalance, but a reverse gender bias, because we have mostly women applying and then leaving for the Erasmus Plus program. And we have the data on the cumulative period from 2014 to 2020. Women were 58% of learners, which is good, I would say. And also, if we consider the whole period from its launch in 1987, we had about 11.7 million people participating to the program, which is, you know, really huge. I mean, we can guess that maybe it answered to, you know, something that international students, European students really wanted to do. And this is quite good. Of course, we had very bad data for the COVID year, which is, you know, we could expect that. But looking for imbalances, what I found is that what the European Commission states is that in 2020, the Erasmus Plus were more inclusive than ever, also fostering an increasing participation of people from disadvantaged background. And then, okay, you know, I got curious and I looked for the definition of disadvantage. And I looked for data as well, as usual. And so what I found is that, for example, in 2017, people coming from disadvantaged background accounted for just 9% of total participants. So we have these huge implementation programs. The idea is so good, and then there is something that we are still missing, right? And we have this, we have a definition actually of the disadvantages from the European Commission, which is quite broad. So everyone who really finds himself or herself in a condition of disadvantage should really fits into this, this definition. But what we see is that I found this report on social inclusion and engagement in mobility, and 75% of the students that answered to the survey, they say that coming from the poorest families, one of their main obstacles in participating to the program was the fact that actually, and we were talking about this before during the lunch break, the scholarship just cover maximum 3/4 of the total costs. And so, you know, this is a disadvantage, because if you are not able to cover the remaining costs, you are not able to live and to apply for the program. And so which is the main risk that we find here, is that only the ones who can really count on another fund for more financial support can really apply and access to the program. And there is also, talking about imbalances, there is also a huge gap between the EU member countries. And so while it should be a tool for inclusion, you know, it actually risks to further divide, I would say, the EU. And this is something that really should be narrowed. And so, which is the idea here? I'm here to bring you the proposals developed by Vision. Vision has this idea of a much broader, possibly free EU Erasmus Plus program. We also have some really, you know, trick insight, because we have an estimate. We economists do love estimates, you know, they don't work most of the times, but we do love it. And they estimated that it would cost approximately, going for a free Erasmus Plus program will cost approximately 1/3 of what the European Commission is spending now on common agriculture policy, which is tricky. And as you know, for every time that we talk, and also what we saw today with the European TV streaming platform is not just about the budget, also for the national budgets. They say we don't have budget, which is not completely true. It's not having budget, it's that you make choices and you choose, you know, how to allocate this budget. And for example, here in Italy, we have huge problems on budgets and on the vision that we have, which is backwards and not, you know, forwards. So here we have this proposal, and we have this estimate that for reaching all the European college students and half of those in secondary schools would cost 18 billion euros each year for a completely free Erasmus Plus program, which is a lot. Yeah, you will say it's a lot of money, but it's not, you know, about not having money. And as we say, it's about choosing what you really want to do. And since we have, you know, these huge gaps also among the EU countries, member countries, and if we really want to spread a common vision of what the European Union should be, this could be one very useful tool. So I would really like to listen to more proposals from the panelists, and also have some insights from the audience. So thank you so much for now, and waiting for the other panels. Thank you.
Thank you, Azzurra. Sure, of course, but I think we do have a microphone for you.
Very simple. About your estimates. What is the take-up rate you envisaged? What is the take-up rate? I presume it is a voluntary program, right? Right? And you envisaged that you hypothesized that the take-up rate is what? Take-up meaning how many people, the percentage of student that would take up Erasmus. So it sounds the take-up rate is 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means that the actual cost, just for clarification, is going to be lower because a take-up rate of 100% is normally a bit high. So for whatever reason, okay. Oh, compulsory, not voluntary.
Yeah, what if it was compulsory for the whole population, all college students population and half,
compulsory and free.
Compulsory and free.
And half of the.
Well, if it is compulsory, if it is 100%, I thought it was voluntary and you wanted simply to expand the budget. Right, now I got it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to underline this data. The cost would be 1/3 of what, as you said, the EU is spending on the common agriculture policy. Luca Jahier, former president of the European Economic and Social Committee, how would you convince policymakers in Brussels to spend less for agriculture and more for Erasmus Plus in university, as the lobbies are quite stronger, the ones from French agriculture and not only French?
So first of all, thank you. And just a precision, my name is Jahier, is a French one. So I understand that.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not the only one. It's very. Just to answer directly to your question, and after I will come to some other reflection, not to evade what you ask. I don't think that we have to continue to think to the idea that when we want to push to one new issue, we have to cut something other, because this will be simply impossible. And as you are saying, the lobby of that is behind the pack is too big, and we have already reduced some part of the CAP, and now in the crisis of the war and all what is concerning, and also in the green transition that rise the cost for the agriculture, it will be simply impossible. So if we put the issue in that sense, there will be simply impossible. Perhaps a tactical suggestion to Vision would be to cut from the proposal this comparison with the CAP, because we'll relate immediately that you want this on the back of the CAP. And you will not find in many European countries, not only in Italy, but think to France, that is major lobbyist, and even the one that have nothing to do with the CAP as Malta, or very few, support from this. So first, I think that if we are really convinced, and I am, a full supporter of this idea, and I would even suggest that we have to enlarge this idea, just to be more ambitious. Because the real goal is exactly the premise of your idea. That is, if we want to really build up a European public space, we have to allow people to do experience of Europe, to do concretely experience of Europe. And this is the way to go. So now the goal is to reinforce the European democratic legitimacy in a moment, as we discussed yesterday, when we want to move more competence and more political one that are core to the role of the state, military defense, and not only money, and other issue, health, for example. So we have to grow up the legitimacy, giving people this sentiment to be European, to live really this double citizenship, national and European. And we have to start from an assumption, that is what came up from all the polls that are done regularly by the European Union. For 60% of the young people in Europe between 16 and 25 60%. Europe is the freedom of moving. When they have to respond, what is Europe for you? Is the freedom to pass the border and to go abroad, to travel, to visit, to work and to study. That was the youth think about Europe. And it is true that Erasmus is one of the only two best success recognized by everyone. There are many others. CIP has been a success, but is not recognized by everyone, of course, that are Euro and Erasmus. There are the two ones. So I do think that we have to work for this purpose, not only for others that are also related, improve the capacity, the knowledge, the skills of our student with 6 months or 1 year of experience in another university, school, abroad. But if we want to build up this European sentiment and the European dimension of citizens, we have to work in improving, enlarging, and going towards the goal of a compulsory obligation as part of the normal curricula of every student in Europe. And we have to find also the way to finance this, if we are thinking that it is fundamental. And I am very happy Sandro Gozzi has left. The parliament has resisted a few years ago when there was the hypothesis to cut Erasmus, not only not to grow up. And the result has been that in the very hard negotiation, the MFF, that in real terms, the European budget is decreasing, is not increasing, as we think. Because if you compare with the number, the Lisbon Treaty has grown up of 35% the competence in politics of European Union, and the budget in real term has decreased. So you have to cut every chapter. The Erasmus has been doubled, so it's a big success. We have to do absolutely more, and we have to be creative to find a way, perhaps with specific way of investing, to invest in this sense. But I do think that we have to, in parallel, and in your paper that I have read, there was also one brief sentence, half of a line quoting this. We also to go back to another idea that has to complement this obligation for students, that has to be a goal. That is to come back to an idea that was first launched in 2012, so it means 10 years ago, by a manifesto signed by Uri Beck, Daniel Cohn-Bendit. They were proposing a compulsory European civil service for everyone. This idea was relaunched in 2016 by a paper written at the time by Giuliano da Empoli, that was the main advisor of the Prime Minister Renzi, with Anna Scani and Francesco Clementi. They called this proposal Odysseus, with an idea to allow all young people, it was only for young people, not for everyone, to be covered with a compulsory European civil service in the field of social, environmental, or cultural action for 6 months in another European country, as a part of your curricula, with two elements also to give the consistency, not only economically with the support we have already in Italy, for example, one of the few countries that has in the national civil service also a part that is dedicated to make civil service abroad, but is not covered for very much. And if you have to say, although Italy has provided a particular economical provision and support for the young that are going abroad, we have from one side to also to invent a system of certification of the skill that these people doing volunteering for 6 months in another country with the standard, with agreed organization or local authority and so on, that will have, and perhaps also some fiscal incentive for the company that will employ these young that have realized this compulsory civil service abroad, at least for the first 3 years. So I think we have to complement with this. And just being ambitious, I think we have also to think to a third program, a third program that will keep exactly the idea that Umberto Eco says a few years ago, that we have to invent a system for providing an opportunity to make experience abroad also for the very normal people, not only for the students or the young that want to volunteer. He was thinking about an Erasmus for the taxi driver, for the manual workers, and for the plumbers. That were the words of Umberto Eco. So perhaps we have also to think to a third program that we can name to Medici, or to Van der Eyden, that was a merchant banker and art collector from Flanders that moved to Naples. He was also some Nobel title in Naples, for artisans, for professional, for small SMEs, leaders, that will allow to them, and for manager of third sector or social economy, as we call in Europe, organization, that allow them to make experience in the same field in another country. This will open enormous opportunity of doing business partnership and also to distribute creativity in Europe. So I do think that maintaining the original goal, that is to build up a real European sentiment between European citizens, the concept to be Europeans also, in addition to be national and belonging to a region. We have to work, from my point of view, for students, for volunteering. In Europe, the estimation is that 100 million people are doing volunteering, of course, from few hours per week to much more. So there is an enormous force on which to count, to propose also this linkage to other experience in other country, and to open-minded and to create linkage and also networking that is more than necessary. And third, for professional and for all the small SMEs, artisan, third sector that I have not a figure for the other, but I can say that as I came from the third sector, that in Italy, 95% of the manager of the third sector in Italy do not speak any foreign language, do not have any foreign experience. And in the time where everything is moving also in this sector of social economy, the Commission had just launched the Social Economy Action Plan in November. It's impossible to think to the transformation of the future of this sector that is growing enormously if you will not push concretely with incentive the manager in each country of this sector to do experience, concrete experience for a few months in other country in the same field with other stakeholders. So I do support the proposal of vision, and I would suggest to enlarge, not to link to another acting policy where we spend still a lot of money, but to push for the necessity, for the political goal, to find a way to find the proper means to finance this, because it is exactly necessary as we will have to find means for the defense, for the energy transition, and for the health sector.
Thank you. Thank you, Luca. Now, Raffaella Nanetti, Professor Emerita, College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs at University of Illinois at Chicago. Would you help us to understand the differences in mobility, student mobility, with the other side of the ocean?
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you, Francesco. I will try to do that. Actually, did I activate it? Yeah, I think so. Actually, I have prepared a few slides which do not speak directly to your question, but at the end of my short presentation, I'll get to it. That is, your question is a little bit of a comparative one. Yeah, I'll address it last. What I try to do, because I do not have, of course, my experience, professional, academic, and research has been in the United States for 50 years. So I do not have direct experience with the Erasmus program. I do know about it. But what I thought, because of the conference that we are participating in now, and the mandate that we've given ourselves, the youth, the man on the moon, is the Erasmus, or could be the Erasmus and the civil service proposal be, in fact, one leverage, in fact, one kind of rocket helping, us to achieve that. And because we've talked about in the last couple of days a lot, people have talked about, the issue of European identity, and particularly, in fact, the issue of how to help strengthen European democracy. I have, my short presentation then zeroes in on that. And I hope, that the title that you see on the first slide helps explain, the kind of take that I've decided to endorse. That is, thinking about the Erasmus and the civil service as a contributing twin method to the goal, to the pursuit of a deeper EU integration, which I do see, and from the discussion of the last couple of days, I understand that lots of people share the same view, as a must. That in order to strengthen, that's sort of the premise. In order to strengthen our European democracy, we do need, in fact, at this point in time, because of the general scenario that we're living in, we need to strengthen actually integration, political integration. And so looking at these two programs as, sort of participating factors in it. So I start out, as you see in this first slide, with the premise, my own reading, and, you can contest, of course, and actually challenge all of it. That I reflect about the where the EU is located today, within a geopolitical context. And my reading is that we're moving. The EU is moving from a very comfortable position that the EU has enjoyed for a long time. In fact, when the USA was and still is, of course, in our strong alliance, we had this strong alliance on the other side of the Atlantic. On the other hand, on the other side, toward the east, we had a strong competitor, economically speaking. But then two kind of very enormous, change, game changes, have occurred, as we all know, the war in the Ukraine, and also the COVID pandemic. And, that has changed, I think. So the EU is moving from that comfortable position, now having to realize that urgently, we all need to find our new role. In fact, in a world that is living, through this crisis, in which we can play, a role that neither the USA nor China, can play. And I'm sure that discussion has happened in another. But that role should be, in my view, about cooperation. I'm sure that many of you share that, peace and prosperity. Okay, because we can do that. The EU can do that because we've never been a superpower. In fact, militarily, and certainly in that sense, we're not perceived. So the role of mentors, of mending, the difficulties and filling gaps and so on, is one that should suit us very well. I think that, as you read through, that there is a reason why, in fact, I am very convinced that we should endorse, that as EU, that new path, and we should proceed on that new path. Why? Because, as I underline in the last bullet that you see, the now under questioning, because of the two changes under questioning, are both the globalization of financial markets, which has been one of the paradigm, neoliberal paradigm, which has shaped, the last over 20 years or so. So, that is under questioning. What we should question now as EU, in order to really redress our democratic deficit, is what globalization has created on the ground. And what globalization has helped to create on the ground is enormous inequalities, a growing, in fact, level of inequalities, more inequalities, and new inequalities. Speaking as a planner, I'm a regional planner, speaking with that from that perspective, spatially think about two transformative changes that all of us, realize when we look around our own territorial communities. Spatially we see everywhere in each European member state, core areas thriving, and they tend to be the metropolitan areas, core areas attracting and very successful, in fact, in providing advanced services and industries. Think about, the literature, I cite a couple of people, Manuel Castells, Saskia Sasses, and so on, the world cities, Milan, for example, we have one in Italy as well, Rome, in another fashion, a global city. So that's that kind of core of great advancement and significance economically and otherwise. Within those core metro areas, in fact, growing in the distinctly differentiated peripheral and not so peripheral neighborhood, terribly deprived, and to an extent, more and more segregated. So even within the core of our metro area, especially, we have seen that growing level of inequalities. Second examples, look about, within your own countries, look about, the increasing difference in economic and social development between such core areas, drivers of prosperity, and marginal areas, hillside, mountain areas, low level, plain areas, a little bit of at a distance, from core areas. Again, another set of inequalities, sometimes quite new, sometimes quite old. In Italy, we have a lot of that experience, unfortunately. So last point about inequalities, which have grown a lot, and looking at Italy, those of you who are Italian, is a special case, I think, on the negative side, whereby what in Italian we call the ascensore sociale, social mobility, in fact, for almost 30 years or more, has essentially stopped. In fact, growth has not occurred to the level that is needed. And in fact, as I said previously, it has occurred, selectively, spatially, okay? So, and the social mobility kind of engine that in the 1970s, in the Italy of the economic miracle of the 50s and 60s and even 70s, really changed the country and modernized the country, it has stopped for a long time. So, if we think of all that, that Italy, but, other EU member states, are in the same kind of or similar type of situation. What do we need to do? Okay, my reading and my conviction is that we need to start, as we have shared in the last couple of days, with a vision to pursue now at the EU level. And that vision, I argue, should be, a moment, in fact, a time for deeper EU integration, political integration. Why? Because the EU is facing both external threats. I'm not, I need to go faster, so I'm not elaborating on them. You can ask questions if the terms are quite unreadable or not understandable, as well as internal uncertainties. Okay, so my hunch and my conviction is that we need to embrace a vision of to make a giant step, not a small step. We really, at this point in time, need to make a giant step forward in terms of pursuing deeper EU integration, because I do consider, and I'm convinced that step has become today, as we speak, 2022, a sine qua non condition. In fact, for the survival of the European integration process. And that, furthermore, that only a politically integrated European Union can carry out further enlargement. We cannot, we can make promises to external countries that, you know, we can expand, but we will not be able to do so unless internally we are more solidly integrated and we acquire, you know, greater strength and significance in decision making. In fact, and you know, yesterday people talked about, you know, which kind of institutional changes are needed and so on. Third point, so we start with the vision, proceeding as planners do. You know, you recognize my professional background in here. Then, you know, vision, objectives, and method. Then the objective then is what also the vision and value and the organizer of the conference in their paper have called, in fact, the European demos, part of it, at least. And here, you know, I don't want to entertain you at length, because here those of you who know my work and so on recognize, you know, one of my biases, perhaps you can call it bias, you know, the issue and the element of social capital. In any case, you know, just to be brief, the argument here in terms of the key objective and offering it as a key objective is that in order to strengthen the sense of common identity and shared value system, which underline, you know, that vision of deeper integration, then the concept of social capital, that is the capacity of a territorial community, of any civil society within any territorial community, to act in a kind of associational manner, and then to link up with the representative institutions to show and pose political demands, which then the institutions, you know, where the circle becomes virtuous and the institutions respond, then demands and results on the ground are produced. That's the essence of social capital. You know, that kind of key step and objective to be pursued is what I'm arguing. For example, you know, the common goods that out of this kind of decision-making process would be produced include education, health, and services accessible to all, water quality, and so on. I've listed the number, and many more we could. Okay, now in the last one, and I'm closing, in fact, is the, finally I come to the Erasmus and the civil service. So they become, in this perspective, they become, going from the vision to the objective, they become part of the method of how to pursue that kind of path of further integration, substantive European integration. A twin method, you know, as I say, I leave to the experts of each of the two programs to enlighten you on some of their details as they started to do. Okay, my take here is that again, because of what I have subscribed in terms of the objective and the centrality of civil society capacity to associate and pose demand and receive responses, that I do, while I'm in full support of both programs and their expansion. And I think, you know, that actually we need to pursue sort of a political challenge to the Commission so that the funding is allocated appropriately 6 times the level that they spend now for Erasmus, for example, because we need to make particularly the Erasmus program, you know, accessible to all, that is free of financial and economic constraints for families, as we have already heard. I have not the same take on on making them compulsory, actually, because I think that if we build and proceed on the path of working, you know, for stronger associational capacity at the level of our community, then the mandatory nature may be somewhat in contrast, with that. But I'm open to the consideration. Okay, and I close here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nanetti. I'm really sorry, but the time is really going fast and we don't have enough time for all the details. So I ask you to be a bit shorter, please. Professor Frati, Francesco Frati, Magnifico Rettore dell'Università di Siena, how would be the impact of these proposals for the universities in terms also of costs? Because you pay for something more to the students who are going outside.
Well, I think the impact would be extraordinary. I mean, I think you will understand from my words yesterday, I'm a great fan of the Erasmus program, and I think it was really the most successful project of the European Union. I think it has a fantastic set of strength, supporting the circulation of students, helping our students to be more mature, to know better the world, to feel themselves European citizens. Some of these aspects of course are quite evident to all of us and to those who have spoken before me. The inclusiveness of the program, letting people or students having all sorts of troubles in feeling themselves included, and I think this program can help them, and I'm sure it has helped many students to feel themselves more part of their own community. Open-mindedness, it's another strength of the program. But I would like to emphasize a couple of additional strengths of the program, which does not relate to the student's life, and these are the integration of the programs. The program, the Erasmus program, has forced the universities to integrate their own degrees, their own programs. And also, it has helped supporting the connection between universities and between scientists, research groups. I think this is a sort of side result of the program, but both of them are quite interesting. In terms of integration of the programs, we probably should do something more, but if we force more Erasmus students to move, we will probably indirectly obtain this goal as well. I think the weaknesses of the program right now are probably only two, only two. One is that in some cases, we still have some differences in the specificity of each program, making some of the teaching programs less available to host students, and making students enrolled in some programs feeling themselves less prepared to go to study elsewhere, even for a short time. And the second and probably bigger problem is the budget. One of the great difficulties that we as universities have to cope with, and the same is for the student, is that the amount of money, the budget for the scholarships are not enough to support the student's life abroad for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So the proposal is okay, and I think it is okay in the sense of the name of the organization it came from. It is called Vision, and the proposal is visionary. Probably we need to go forward in a two-step mode. The first one, because there are two aspects in the proposal. One is compulsiveness, the fact that it's becoming compulsory, and the other one is free-for-all. And free-for-all is probably the hardest part. Well, it's certainly, both of them are hard to achieve, but we also have to start from one point. So why don't we first start from making Erasmus really free to all? So allowing budget which covers the actual cost of living abroad and also traveling for all those students who would like to engage themselves in an Erasmus experience. And secondly, we may move to compulsiveness, to make it compulsory. Of course, making it compulsory has a wider range of difficulties. Some of them are related with the heterogeneity of our students. I mean, right now with, I don't know how much, but the figures at the University of Siena are probably that 1/4 of the university's students, of the enrolled students actually engage themselves in an Erasmus experience. Probably if the budget would be, if the budget is raised to make the fellowships enough to cover all the expenses, including traveling and accommodation, we would have an increase in the number of students accepting the fellowships and engaging in the program. And then we will think about compulsiveness. I haven't thought of one of the conclusions of the professor who spoke before me. So the fact that compulsiveness somehow conflicts with the idea of with the idea of a cooperative nature of with the idea of a cooperative Europe. So forcing students who are not willing to go may somehow, you know, revert back against us. But let me conclude this this intervention by mentioning two other aspects. In our path towards enlarging the program, one step could be done by supporting more double degrees. Now we have this option of double degrees of you know, programs in different countries in which the students are forced to basically, it's almost compulsory Erasmus, and they get the degree which is valid in both countries. And the second one is you know, brand new initiative of the European Union, the so-called European alliances. I know that the Commission is has a goal of granting at least 60 different alliances, probably involving I believe 600 to 800 European universities around Europe. Maybe these two opportunities, double degree programs and alliances, might be used as a, you know, a practice ground to see if this idea can have some success. So my support is there for the idea of making Erasmus as vast as possible. I believe that it's going to be not easy to make it compulsory in a relatively short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rettore Frati. I see that there are also some questions and suggestions from the audience, but first I would like to finish with my panelists. Stefania Baroncelli, Professor of European Law at the University of Bolzano, could you help us to find other critical points and opportunities from this proposal?
Thank you very much. I am Stefania Baroncelli. I also was acting as prorector for teaching for some years in my university. I'm a former Erasmus student. This is the most important thing. And also published 10 years ago a book on teaching European studies, which was successful, but now surprisingly is selling more now than 10 years ago. It's strange. Why? Because I think there is a lot of interest on Erasmus exchanges and the higher education area. Yeah, so I'm starting from one assumption, I hope not to be too long. Well, actually 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure to invite the German ambassador in Italy to my university. And I asked him, well, what is the most important thing that Italy should bet on to improve its role in Europe? And actually he said, well, Italy, as I see it now, is a very closed society. It's very reverse in itself. It speaks always about its problem. It should be more open and take its leadership in Europe. So I think that this is very important step because this proposal of the Erasmus for all, also in the high schools, is a giant leap forward in order to build the European identity. The framework is ideal, the timing, I would say. Why? With the Next Generation EU, we decided in Europe to strengthen the STEM subjects also for girls, to build schools, new schools, and also to recruit in Italy 70,000 new professors with new procedures by 2024. These new professors should have new knowledge of didactics and speak with their education community. So, said that, I think that Erasmus was very successful, although there are some research, academic research, which say that is not so successful. And also in the vision paper, we stress that. In fact, it is very successful, not so much for building a European identity, but to promote other skills, like language skills, intercultural competencies, transversal skills, and mobility in the European job market. In fact, people with Erasmus are more mobile. They participate to the European job market. Also, university researchers and professors are more mobile. So they accept the risk of going abroad and to build their career abroad. And also, actually wanted to spend 2 words on the double degrees, but actually the rector has already said that, so I will not say more than that. So I think it is a good reason to expand the Erasmus methodology from higher education to high schools. So I fully agree with that. If you look at the proposal that the Conference for the Future of Union of Europe has put forward, I have written down this proposal, for instance, promote European exchanges in different fields, both physically and digitally, including educational exchanges, twinning, travel, professional mobility, including for teachers and local elected politicians. Such exchanges should be made accessible across member states for all, regardless of their age, level of education, background, financial means. With this overall aim, the EU should inter alia strengthen existing EU-level exchange and mobility programs such as the European Solidarity Corps, European Plus, Discover EU, and ensure more widespread and diverse participation in these programs, and consider adding also new elements such as an additional objective of civic service fostered through volunteering and cultural passes. Program exists already, but should be expanded. Now I have noted down 2 or 3 issues and that are already my conclusion, actually. So, for instance, one issue which may arise is this in high school, how to organize it in practice. Because if you speak to the professors of the high school, they say, no, I'm sorry. Why? Because for them, it's a problem. If you think in the fourth year, all the students going abroad, so this is a conflict, they say, with didactics, with good didactics, good standard of knowledge. However, if you think that all the students are going abroad, also from other states, so you have to think differently. You have to think that European students will come to Italy. So the professors will have to change also their didactic. They should be able to speak with European students, German students, French students coming to Italy to their class. I think this will be wonderful, actually. So, but we have to really think that this change will bring about other changes. Second, we know that didactic and education is a competence of the state, so we will need to change the treaties. And the last point is this. I think that a great advantage for multilingualism in our Italian society is a plus, because we need graduates with more skills also, for instance, in the public administration. And another issue, a legal one, I am a lawyer actually, we in the public exams, so when you have to be hired in the public administration, you have to evaluate these skills. So to give points to these skills and to, to evaluate the knowledge of English also for this public post. So I'm finished here.
Thank you. I think the most complicated issue is to change the treaties, because yesterday we spoke a lot about this problem. It will be really tough to change the treaties. Then there is also a problem of balancing the choices of the students when it comes to choose where to go. I think, I don't see the data, so I'm not sure, but I think that Spain could be one of the most preferred countries chosen by the Erasmus student. Marina Garcia, Mediaset España.
Is actually on the top.
On the top. I was pretty sure. So what is the situation in your country, and what is your, are you a former Erasmus student?
I was.
Where?
Rome.
In Rome, oh, okay.
And it changed my life.
As for everyone. So what is your experience and the experience of your country?
There's so many things we can say about that. Obviously, after all the things that we share here, I'm sure in this room is full of people that has been in an Erasmus and has a kid, a daughter who is abroad. So we are all very familiar with this reality. Once I've heard someone who said that Erasmus was the biggest and the most important work of Europe in terms of creating globally and brother and sisterhood of young people. And I totally agree with my experience. In my case, Italy and Spain are two countries that where the exchange is everywhere, not also in Erasmus, but the Erasmus is a perfect example. Because the life is very similar. So normally when you are in the university, you find so many Italians in my case. And when I came to Rome, it was the same. So I could see this relation very closely. In my case, the numbers that Azzurra shared a few minutes ago were really clear about how Erasmus is successful. And but now we have to wonder how this idea, who is clearly a success, who made a generation who is building a new Europe, could change. So the ideas we share here, for example, freedom of moving, compulsory, also secondary education, are really interesting. I think we should work in an integration in very sense of the word, make this type of experience something that everyone could join. It's important, of course, for the identity of Europe, and also as a tool, because if we live in a era of first a pandemic, then a war, also a radical politicals, who is always we can find also in Spain, in Italy, and all about Europe. A generation of Europe people who join Erasmus is also a tool for the institutions to share the idea of integration, where already said, an open mind, to be more realistic about the culture and the diversity. And also, I was speaking with Stefania first outside about how the change is important in the mind of a student who is abroad, no, as Erasmus. So it's important to make it free or possible for everyone, because one mind change could change when it's outside, and is so big, like when you come back. It was my case, and I know so many cases. She told me about her kid, her boy, her daughter, her son, excuse me. You come back to your country, and the movement in your head is so many big that you don't even find your reality something that belongs to you. So the change in your mind is really big like that. It's called depression after Erasmus, and it's real. It happens to so many people. So I think we should use Erasmus people as a tool for the institutions.
Thank you, Marina. It's true. When you come back from your Erasmus, you need some time to adapt back to your reality. Our time is expired, but I think we can take some suggestion from the audience, because there was someone raising. Okay, we'll try. We don't have time to answer the questions, but we are open to your contributions.
Thank you very much. My name is Victoria from European Liberal Forum. I have two questions. The first is regarding the inclusion of Russian students into the Erasmus Plus program. From what I remember that I've read a few years ago, Russia was one of the top benefactors, Russian students, of the Erasmus Plus program over the years. As a lot of Russian students actually not the top outside of the European Union, so non-EU benefactors. Is it going to change after the war? What is the stance of the Erasmus Plus program? Do you still think that exclusion of the students from the program is going to be helpful, or still it is better to make sure that they are involved and they come to Europe and the connection is not completely cut? The second quick question is to Professor Nanetti, is regarding the European demos, because you mentioned it in your presentation and you defined it as a demos which has a shared identity and culture. I wanted to ask you, do you think that demos actually exists? And what do you mean by saying shared identity? Should that identity mean that all European Union citizens should identify first as European and then their national, or both European and their national identity? And actually, do we need a demos to make the EU function as an institution? Thank you.
Can we finish the round of questions, please?
I have a warning and a few proposals rather than a question. The warning: we should probably stop saying that Erasmus is the greatest success of the EU. This is not doing the EU any favor. The single market, the single currency, and Schengen regard everybody, while Erasmus is involving a tiny proportion of the European population. If we say that this is the greatest success, it gives the idea that the EU is for the elite, not for everybody, while the single market and the single currency are the reason why the EU went from 6 funding members to 27. So that's just a warning about communicating about the Erasmus. The other point is we should, in our proposal, add that people should be able to do the Erasmus or even more the civil service also outside of the EU. Think about back and cosmopolitan Europe, not in any world countries. It's not to go to Harvard or Yale for academic purpose, but in countries in need where there is some support by the EU, some program by the EU, and so on. This would be a very important issue also in our relationship we mentioned this morning with Africa and with the other area of the world. And then a few proposals. The aim of all the proposal of the Erasmus for All and the civil service is to build a European demos. But you can be a good European citizen even if you never move from your town hall or your country. Immanuel Kant lived in Königsberg all his life. So we should also think about other things different from mobility to create the European demos. That was the goal. And I would like to make 5 small proposals. First, make the digital platform of the Conference on the Future of Europe permanent, and put there all the European Commission consultation about all the new piece of legislation. Second, create a link to that, a virtual learning environment with free courses on the EU, and make them available and compulsory in all training courses funded by the EU. There are millions of citizens every year that take EU funded course, and the only EU thing is the logo with the flag and saying funded by the EU. This is nonsense, and this is an amazing possibility. You can use then this virtual learning environment to train teachers and make this available for teaching European civic education in the schools in the national system. You could link to this platform a weekly or monthly newsletter run by the European Commission representative in the various countries to ensure that all the people that have participated in the digital platform, in the virtual learning environment, keep having some flows of information from the EU. And this proposal altogether would cost 18 million rather than 18 billion euro, but can have an impact on millions and millions of citizens every year.
Thank you, Roberto. In very quick manner, can we answer to the 2 questions? One was for Professor Nanetti. One, who wants to answer the question about Russia?
To her,
Frati, please.
To her first question,
about
my
Russia,
answer
yes.
is second option. We need instruments to include them.
Okay, please.
Try to answer as quickly as possible. The common identity is okay. The common identity, I mean, in fact, what we already experience. You know, we are citizen of a city. We are citizen of a region. We are citizen of a state. And we feel very strongly about, you know, those levels of identification. We do not feel generally, you know, around Europe yet a strongly a sense of European identity. So, of course, you know, identity, common identity, meaning that we subsumes into that sense, you know, strengthen, in fact, the others, you know, identity perceptions that we feel already very strongly. So, yes, you know, both 3, 4 kind of levels. The European level, the European demos, we do have, I mean, even in the treaties, you know, there is mandatory, in fact, you know, that we have a common sense of systems of values, in fact, respective of human rights, you know, sort of strengthening social values, welfare policies, and so on. Of course, at the moment, we do much of that or more of that at the national, regional, and local level. What we need to do, and the discussion of the last few days and tomorrow as well, indicate that actually what we are still quite weak is at European level. We need to strengthen, you know, our ability at European level to put forward and implement totally that common sense of values, of solidarity, cooperation, respect of human rights, blah, 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 no, all of it.
Thank you. Final remarks with Luca, Jahier, please.
Just 2 short comments. One on the exclusion of the Russian student. Of course, I'm not speaking officially the name of European Union or any European institution. Personally, I do think this is a mistake, a tragic mistake. as it is a mistake, we are cutting the participation of Russian artist or Russian director or Russian singing opera in our performance. We are cutting the participation of Russian writers in book mess and so on. I remember that during the worst time of the Cold War, we were not cutting, for example, the participation of Russian physicians to the International Congress of Scientists. If it is true that this war has been generated by Putin and the Putin administration, and we are fighting him and not the Russian people, as all the officials are saying, we cannot cut links with people and Russians too. But of course, this is very complicated. The second one is to one of the concrete proposals of Roberto. We very often agree, but on this I disagree. The digital platform of the COFOE has been a failure, a real failure. Around 50,000 people have been connected to this. So it has been largely forgotten. I want to remember that another initiative that was not by the Commission, but done by a private coalition called Civico in preparation of the European election 2018 that I sponsored at the time as the president of the DSE, got 3 million participants in the digital dynamics of participating in the election. So 50,000 people in 1 year consultation promoted by all the institutions for the COFOE, please, on the 450 million European citizens is a failure, and that's not. And I do not think that going consultation all this platform, we always transform Europe in a more restricted club. I think that we need physical experience. Good to a digital link that are already too much or too many to use, but we do think to improve the physical experience, moving from one side to another and to live with the boots on the ground in that civic sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca. I'm not here to give my personal